Hello everyone and welcome back to the Cyclocross Social Podcast. Today we are here with our first episode after the World Championships and I will be discussing the X²O trophy in Lille and the Ethias Cross in Maldegem. With me here to do that is Issam. Welcome Issam.
Hey everybody.
As said, X²O trophy in Lille and the Ethias Cross of Maldegem are on the program today. We'll start with talking about the X²O trophy in Lille. First up, the men's race there. Issam will tell us what went down.
Yeah, the Cross in Lille, the seventh race, the penultimate race of this X²O trophy series. And it were tough conditions due to the rain and the storm that was beforehand. There were some doubts if the race would go ahead, but in the morning they decided that the conditions will be a little bit less hard as they were in the beginning of the day. So they were sure that the race could go ahead, and there was a lot of mud, and that is something for Toon Aerts. Toon Aerts that at the start of the race went away and didn't look back, and basically was in control of the race from the beginning till the end. Iserbyt was having a bad start, the number 2 of this classification, and basically never really came into the race. Seems like he didn't really bother, had an issue with his brake as well, and that was for him, basically just trying to get to the finish and not bother too much with this race. Behind him, Laurens Sweeck was having a good start and a good beginning of the race, but then fell back. And it was actually Michael Vanthourenhout and the young Niels Von De Putter that were fighting for that second and third spot. Van De Putter having a very good last lap, we know that, and also a very good last part of his race. Seems to be in very good shape and was able to get that second place. Behind Van De Putter was still an interesting battle. Vanthourenhout that was very long on that third spot. Then had a mechanical, fell back. And then we had an amazing sprint with Lars van der Haar and Tom Meeuwse. Meeuwse seemed to go for that third spot and being able to get a podium. But van der Haar just in the last part of that sprint was able to go by, and we needed a photo finish, but it was quite clear on the screen as well. Van der Haar that was able to get the podium for Trek Baloise.
Toon Aerts took the win here then. It was his 4th win of the season after he earlier won Gieten, Zonhoven and Kortrijk. So a long time without victory for him. In my opinion, a very expected win today. The course suited him in these heavy, rainy and windy conditions, and that made the course muddy. So I think it was expected for Toon Aerts to take the win, also considering that he skipped yesterday's race in Maldegem, having a bit of extra freshness. So I expected Aerts to win. He delivered, and he delivered in style. I mean, in the first lap there was still somewhat of competition, but he quickly dropped them and, in my opinion, did what he was expected to do, also securing the overall win in the X²O trophy today.
Yeah, super important for his sponsors as well, and there was a parcours really for him. If it was a bit faster, I don't know how it would go. Then I think we would have seen a little different race. But he knew with these circumstances this was something for him, and good strong race for him, expected as well. And just making sure that in the end of the season he's going to win one classification at least, and then you can say that at least a part of his season is successful. I think the winning part was not really there this season for him, but I think it's always nice if you can finish the season off with a victory. Still a weekend to go, but definitely very promising for him what he did today.
Really not a lot we can say about that victory, but much more is there to say about Niels Von De Putter. His best result of his career, 2nd place. His previous best result was a 3rd place in the elite category in Brussels last year, also after the World Championships. If we remember back to last year, after the World Championships, we were talking about Niels Von De Putter, saying, he's very strong after the World Championships, because he ended 3rd in Brussels, 5th in Eeklo, but also already 9th in Lille and Middelkerke. And then his World Championships was somewhat disappointing. He ended 8th. I feel that this year we're watching a replay of last year, because he ended, I think it was 7th at the World Championships, disappointing, and then 4th in Maldegem, which we'll speak about later, and then 2nd today, and with style. I mean, do we again need to conclude that Van De Putte mistimed his peak?
It's almost like he does it on purpose, but we can conclude in a way that, at the Worlds I had this feeling when he was riding there that it was that he was having some sort of a good shape and that the condition was there, but it was just not really coming out in a way. And today he was super strong. It was, I think, on with the elites on television, one of his better races that I have seen. We knew that he had a very good last lap, and sometimes we had some results of him that he was able to get out of a top, from an 11-12 spot to get into a top 10. But this is something else. He was there with Vanthourenhout not able to follow in the end, had some bad luck, but overall I think Vanthourenhout, even without the bad luck, was not able to beat him. So some serious names that are behind him, and I think what he just needs to do for next year is make sure that this doesn't happen, that he's going to be in better form going to those worlds instead of after the worlds. But nevertheless, good performance for him, and I think something that he can look forward to take with him for next season.
In his post-race interview, he was speaking about some back issues in the middle part of the season, which according to him was the cause of a couple of disappointing results there. He says that is solved and that he felt that his form was improving towards the Worlds, but I think deep inside he also knows that his peak is a week too late, and it doesn't really change the fact that he is super talented. Seeing how packed and long the season is, it's easy to forget how good of a season he's actually had, because remember back to the World Cups early in the season. Waterloo 5th place, Fayetteville 7th place. Okay, disappointing in Iowa, but still 8th in the World Cup of Overijse, 2nd on the Vanberg. Go back into December, 6th in Besançon, also 6th in Val d'Isole. Of course, also 2nd in Namur with the under-23s in the World Cup. He's had a very good season, and he's obviously very talented. But yeah, as you said, Issam, we need to conclude that his peak arrived a week too late, and that is maybe the case for some other riders as well. If you look at the under-23 results, and you always have it. But nevertheless, I think that Van De Putte can move forward from this going into next year, in which he will be an elite. Eventually holding off just Lars van der Haar and Tom Meeuwse by 12 seconds. Van der Haar riding strong back after a very bad start once again. Also not his type of weather and also not his type of course, but good comeback. However, I think that Tom Meeuwse really messed up that sprint.
How much I wanted him to win that sprint. I mean, Meeuwse was having some tough times last season, and this season seemed like was a solid season from his part. A lot of times was able to ride around that top 10 even in the bigger races, and today just really was a man with a mission, but just failed in that last sprint. Everything that he should have been doing, he didn't do. I mean, in that sprint, starting way too early, sitting back in the saddle way too early as well, looking behind, getting nervous. I mean, it was almost like he needs to do a couple more of these and then he's going to be able to do it right. But, I think for him, this is definitely... There was an interview just before the Worlds with the Belgian television where he was invited. And, the way he was talking about it, he's finding his passion a little bit back of cyclocross. And that's just very good to see. I mean, it is a guy with a big palmarès, actually, and a big guy in cyclocross. So hopefully... he's able to, get that passion more back, and I think he's still not. He doesn't have a contract, I think, for next season, does he? Or I don't know.
He doesn't have a contract, but he has the word from the team management of Hans Maas that he can continue for at least another season. And I think that he proves his worth of that with his performance today. He was just short of claiming the first ever podium in a classified race for Hans Maas. Definitely made a lot of improvements. I think freshness also has to do with it. Other riders experience a bit of backlash of the jet lag, as well as just a long and heavy season coming to an end. But just to come back on the sprint, I think he launched too early and also thought he had it in the bag too early, which was a bit of a shame to see for the rider with so much experience, because 10 years ago he won the cross here in Lille, and I think a sprint with Sven Nys. So that would definitely be great to see him stand on that podium. But of course, very, very well deserved for Lars van der Haar. But I still think that in the end, they would have fallen just short of Michael Vanthourenhout, because Vanthourenhout had a chain issue in the last lap after a mistake, lost 30 seconds due to that. And I think without that, we would have seen Vanthourenhout on the podium. What do you reckon, Issam?
Yeah, I can only agree with that. I think I was so surprised, actually, that, when the camera switched and we saw Van der Haar all of a sudden there with Vanthourenhout. Well, I think before that there was like a 20-30 second gap. So yeah, normally if everything went like it should have been going, Vanthourenhout was definitely the third place guy, and it's a shame for him. We have seen a couple of guys actually struggling and making mistakes and also having some mechanical issues, but yeah, this one was definitely decisive for Vanthourenhout to be not on the podium, and then, you know, mentally it's just gonna be like, oh damn, I was so close and now these guys are gonna be overtaking me while I was quite sure that I would be on the podium. Yeah, that is what it is, and then you don't really find anything to fight back, and then it's kind of gone.
Let's look at the entire top 10 then. Toon Aerts taking his 4th victory of the season, as said, ahead of Niels Von De Putter, Lars van der Haar and Tom Meeuwse. 5th place then went to the unlucky Michael Vanthourenhout ahead of Jens Adams, who puts in another solid performance. Looking at the rest of the top 10, we find Thijs Aerts ahead of Daan Soete, Kevin Kuhn and Laurens Zweek. One real name that stands out in this top 10 to me is Thijs Aerts. Thijs Aerts has had a very rough season. He had his top of his finger amputated over the summer following a nasty crash last year. Toon Aerts says that until the day of today, Thijs Aerts experiences major pains in his fingers, and that is one of the reasons that his season has been disappointing for himself. Toon says that he hopes his brother Thijs will remain pro over the summer, but at the same time he also kinda gave the hint towards the fact that Thijs Aerts maybe would be stopping due to having too much pain. But he says that he hopes he can continue because he likes training with his brother makes him stronger on training, and he believes that Thijs Aerts can bounce back for that. So, of course, a very strong ride today to end 7th, and I think in the beginning of the race he was even higher up the grid and then just faded a bit, but I think overall a very strong ride by the brother of Toon Aerts. Someone who didn't have a very good day today was Iserbyt.
Motivation. I think that he woke up and was thinking, well, it's not gonna be my day today. I don't know. It's he was having leg warmers on. The guy was bad start, but that is something he does sometimes. So, you know, that is almost something that we expect from him to do in a race, having a bad start, but he recovers from it most of the time. But today just was never came into the race, and he went from bad to worse, also having his brake fell off as well. So, you know, that those are just things. When those things happen, you know, it's end of the season, it doesn't go your way, and then you think, well, for me the season is done. He has the World Cup already. The Super Prestige is also something he still has to fight for, but is going his way as well. So, you know, he's second for sure in this competition as well. So he just does, you know, he needs to ride it home, and that's it, and get the money that you get after the race, and just look forward to the last weekend of the season, I think, for him.
I mean, you mentioned that he used leg warmers today, actually one of the only riders doing so. And I think he secretly forgot to shave his legs and then needed to cover that up. And that's why I think he could use some help of our friends at Manscaped, especially with Valentine's Day coming up. Because our friends at Manscaped are working harder than ever to ensure that your Valentine's Day is one to remember. It's not possible to turn this day of romance into Independence Day this year, so you need to get in control with their Performance Package 4.0, which includes their signature Lawnmower 4.0. This February, join the 4 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped. So that's for you, but as well as for Iserbyt, because with our exclusive offer at manscaped.com, use the code CXSocial22 for 20% off plus free shipping. So the code CXSocial, all in capital letters, 22 for 20% off and free shipping. And I mean, for Iserbyt, it's probably even more important that he gets to Manscaped and uses this code, because he doesn't have flowers to bring home to his girlfriend Vriend Madens. And I think it's important for him then to make up by getting these lawnmower to shave his legs, because grooming is very important on Valentine's Day. Inside the Performance Package 4.0, you'll find the signature Lawnmower 4.0, which is an electric trimmer designed to trim hair on loose skin. The advanced skin-safe technology is designed to reduce grooming accidents, and it comes equipped with a 4000K LED light spotlight that's bright enough to shine a light to your true love this year. Confession says education breeds confidence, so it's time to get educated to the ultimate grooming routine for all of your areas, including the ones of romance for this year's Valentine's Day. This package also includes the Weed Whacker, which is a nose and ear hair trimmer to whack out all the worst of your weeds. In the package, Manscaped was even so kind to add 2 free gifts this year, the Shed Travel Bag and anti-shafting boxer briefs to keep your boys cool and collected. For extra freshness, the Performance Package also includes Manscaped liquid formulations like the Crop Preserver Deodorant and Crop Reaver Toner. The deodorant works wonders out of the shower, whilst the toner is perfect on-the-go weapon that is designed to keep your body smelling wonderful all day and all night long. For the complete package, the Manscaped Refined Cologne is the cherry on the top for a night out. It's Pepe Le Pew approved. It offers a masculine yet light scent that will leave your partner speechless. Manscaped has you covered this Valentine's Day, so get yourself the gift that you and your date will both appreciate. Go to manscaped.com for the exclusive offer of 20% off plus free shipping with the code CXSocial22. I repeat, CXSocial22 with CXSocial all in capital letters. Let's go on and talk about the women's race then. The women's race was not very exciting because it was Lucinda Brandt who quickly took over the lead, the woman who skipped yesterday's race, and then proceeded to drop all her opposition. Alvarado was the one who was sticking around in the wheel of Brandt the longest, but it wasn't even that long because at the end of the first lap, Brandt was already gone. The former world champion, who was now riding in the European Championship jersey, just cruised on and extended her gap over her opposition. Alvarado got joined by Annemarie Worst, the winner of yesterday, and Worst quickly dropped Alvarado, and basically that left the podium already set early on in the race, Brandt ahead of Worst and Alvarado. Just like the men's race, Issam, what is there to say? I don't think a lot. Brandt simply the strongest in absence of Vos, like has been the case for almost the entire season.
Yeah, it is an honest parcours, and I mean Brandt, we knew that was the one that was above all, and Vos was the only one that was able to be close to her and to be able to beat her, and today there was no exception. Brandt was just the stronger, and Worst and Alvarado were they were there, but they were not. It is a bit what we see the tendency of how the season is going. Worst was not having the best of starts, but then was able to come in the wheel of Alvarado, who was able to be in the front in the first lap, but then faded a little bit, or faded actually a lot. And then, Worst was just the second woman of the race, and Alvarado hold off Bakker and Van Alphen, who were having a good race, but were just not really able to get to that podium spot, and ended up in third.
Worst and Alvarado, both having difficult seasons, talked about it many times already in previous shows. Now we see that it is a strong performance by these two. Maybe not all the names are here, that's true, but still, second and third, solid. Worst also won yesterday. We'll talk about that in a minute. Alvarado would have probably still ended third at the World Championships without that bad luck. But do you think that these riders can take some positive energy from this and carry that on towards the off-season, that they really need to end the season on a good note to go into the summer with confidence? How important is that?
You cannot underestimate it. It's quite important in a way to end your season positively, especially if you had I wouldn't say a bad season, but if you had a season that is a bit disappointing for yourself and doesn't meet with your expectations, then it's obviously very good if you have a good end of your season. But for Worst, the back problem is something that she has. For Alvarado, it is the back and maybe also some other elements. But the summer is always a good time to just reset, make sure that you are having the right amount of training and try to work on that condition, make sure that it's going to be better for next season, and try to avoid the things that that caused the injuries. It's tough. If your season didn't really go like it should be going, for Worst it was not really the worst, but for Alvarado there were really some big lows in a way. So I hope that they can recover from it, and I don't think it's the end of the world this season. And especially for next season, they have plenty of time to work on it and make sure that they come stronger then. And let's hope for the best, because I think for the women's category. It would be great if they were able to bring the battle to Brand and be a little bit closer.
But even for Alvarado, the season has had some positive notes. I mean, of course, the DNF in Heus de Zolder with back issues was really a low, but I mean, still second place in Baal, third at the Nationals, fourth at the Worlds. I mean, fourth of the world, and then it's still good. I mean, of course she wants to be world champion, but it's also not disastrous. And then, of course, early in the season in Zonhoven, things looked very good for her. She also ended second in Kortrijk and got another podium in, I think it was the Dutch Nationals or somewhere else. But nevertheless, I think that even for Alvarado, there are positive notes to remember of this season. We said it earlier as well, you can still see glances of talent in Alvarado. And I think overall, it's just a matter of time until that is sorted again. I mean, we already said it in our season preview. I don't want to give too much credit to that because we said some very wrong things there as well, especially about Marianne Vos. But Issam there was telling us that he had his doubts about Alvarado because on the mountain bike things were significantly worse than the year before. And it looks like that was already this caution at the beginning of the season that Issam had noted. On the mountain bike things weren't going the way that they were supposed to go. And it continued into the cross season. But yeah, I think that indeed with results like this today, we see that there is still quite some talent in Alvarado. Things will eventually get better. And then at the end of the day, I have no doubt personally that Alvarado and Worst will be competing at the front of races again in the future. The only question is, are they so talented that they can even keep up with the fast developments of the sport, like the youngsters now coming through, Pieterse, Van Empel and Van Anrooy? Is it possible for them to take another step? Because I believe they will need to make another step to compete with those women in the future. If we look at our entire top 10, Brand took the win ahead of Worst and Alvarado as discussed. 4th place went to Bakker ahead of Van Alphen, and then 6th place went to Alicia Frank ahead of Denise Betsema. 8th place went to Marion Norberg-Riberolle ahead of Marie Schreiber and Rebecca Gariboldi. A couple of these names we'll come to talk about a bit more in the Maldegem part of the podcast, for instance Bakker, Van Alphen and Frank. I would however like to speak here about Denise Betsema. 7th place, it's disappointing, but there was a lot of things off for Denise Betsema. Issam, what was the case with Betsema prior to this race and during the race?
Well, I mean, there was some sort of illness. It wasn't COVID, but it was something that, that she had to recover from, and that was also the reason why she didn't go to the Worlds. It was not a positive or a negative test, but it was just illness in general that she didn't feel great. We could see in Hogerheide already that it wasn't the Betsema that we can expect. Even in a worse day, she would still be able to finish higher than she finished in Hogerheide, in my opinion at least. And that was obviously a thing that was going on. Decided to race today, was clear, felt healthy enough to be able to race, but you could see also today it was there, but it was not really the Betsema that we know. Didn't really go well. There were some mistakes that she made. And then during the race, which I saw the incident, but I didn't really know what happened. You told me afterwards that there was something with her finger as well, that she injured her finger there in a crash, which didn't really seem that harmful, but I don't know if it was exactly that crash, but it was one where she went downhill and went into the barrier, actually came to a full stop and then continued after that. But there was definitely something going on there with her finger, and it wasn't really the best of scenes.
For now, there's no update on the situation of the finger of Betsema. All we know is that she has been taken into the hospital for further examinations, but things didn't look good. That was what the team manager Jurgen Mettepenningen had to say about that. And that things didn't look good, well, that was clear in terms of a result, but we can't be too harsh of that because of the factors Issam said. But it does look once again that Denise Betsema is going to have a season with a couple of wins, but no major championship and no major classification. So one to forget, and on to the next one for Denise Betsema. I'm interested if she will continue her season or that she will decide to leave it with this, because it didn't look great today. And of course, illness, it can be harsh. I mean, even just a normal flu or something, it can completely ruin all of your form. Let's go on and talk about the parcours in Maldegem then. For once, I would actually like to begin with the women, and I'll give a brief summary there. For the first part of the race, we had 4 leaders, Anna K together with Manon Bakker, Annemarie Worst and Aniek van Alphen. Fun thing there, K, Van Alphen and Bakker were all jumping the barriers. Worst was running, just something interesting, but that didn't seem to hamper Worst as she rode away about halfway through the race. K was the first one to drop. Later on, Bakker and Van Alphen dropped, and Worst could cruise on towards her second victory of the season. Behind that, there was a fierce battle between Manon Bakker and Aniek van Alphen. Manon Bakker and Van Alphen were fighting hard. So hard that Bakker, when she made a mistake in the sandpit, even threw her bike out to block Van Alphen. Van Alphen was not amused, and that led Bakker going first into the sprint, and she barely held on to that second place ahead of Aniek van Alphen. Worst took the victory there. We already discussed Worst in our part about Lille. I don't think there was much to say, except that yesterday she was simply the strongest in the women's race. Is that the reason why she won on the course in Maldegem?
Yeah, that is a fair conclusion. I mean, the others gave her some company in the beginning of the race, but when Worst had enough in a way, she just went, and the others didn't really have an answer on it, and simply was just the strongest in their race. I mean, the field was obviously not the field that we had in Lille. Brandt wasn't there. Alvarado also wasn't there, but we still had obviously Bakker and Van Alphen. And in the beginning they gave a strong competition, but in the end it was quite clear that they will not be able to stay with Worst, and I think the strongest has won that race.
Yeah, clearly I'm not a major fan of the course in Maldegem. It has been improved a bit for this edition, but it really is just a parcours with a couple of man-made hills and quite a lot of corners, and I mean it was just clear that Worst was the strongest, and on a course like this it's hard to make a difference, but if you make a difference it's simply due to the endurance you have, and for Worst it was simply better than for Bakker and Van Alphen. Worst also showing that it's possible to have an illness, in her case COVID, and not suffer too much from it. But behind that it was Bakker against Van Alphen. I think that Van Alphen benefits from the freshness that she has of skipping 1 week of racing, because also today she was alright in Lille. Throughout the season it's been a tad disappointing in my opinion. I'd expected a bit more. She was after all the runner-up at the Under-23 World Championships last year in Ostend. Of course she was last year Under-23, which plays a major factor, but I think last year her results in the elite category was a bit better than they were this year. This year it's been just a small step backwards, but yeah, showing here today that she was strong in Lille, but also yesterday with that 3rd place. But she was not happy about that move in the sandpit by Bakker. What did you think about that move, Issam?
Yeah, I mean, she later clarified that it was a reflex, but I don't know about reflexes, but one thing I know is that was quite intentional, but that's racing. I mean, people are a bit shocked about it, but I think that in cyclocross, the limits are a bit... I wouldn't say that you should push each other off every time, but once in a while it's part of the game. There was no crash involved there, and yeah, like if you want to get rid of it and you don't want to have this gray area of these kind of things, then the jury needs to be a little bit more strict in these kind of things, and just give a penalty or relegate someone from the race. But that is not the case, so then these kind of things are kind of allowed in a way, are a gray area in the sport. And yeah, I mean, those things just happen, and it isn't, some are fan of it, some are not. In the end, it was a crucial move, because if she didn't do that, Van Alphen would have been ahead, and in the sprint I think Bakker wouldn't have get around it. So it was in the end a smart decision to do that to get 2nd place, but it was definitely not the nicest one.
I think it was intentional. I mean, if this isn't intentional, then I don't know what is. I don't know what to think about it, because the rules say that unsportsmanlike behavior is not tolerated. But the question is, where do you draw the line for unsportsmanlike behavior? Is blocking unsportsmanlike? Or what do we classify as sportsmanship? I mean, it's a very grey, it's very vague. Even in the cyclocross regulations, there's nothing really said about sprinting. So I feel like maybe that's something that should be worked on and work it out. I mean, I'm not necessarily a fan of implementing time penalties like they do in Formula 1. Okay, Bakker 5-second time penalty or something like that, but I think it's definitely something that should be looked into, because for now it's a bit of a grey area. What Issam said is correct. It's not something that's not allowed by the rules. It's not something that has never been done in cyclocross. I mean, go back to the times of Niels Albert and Sven Nys, or even the times of Paul Herreigers, and you will see crazy tricks being played. But yeah, I mean, it's something that should be looked into, and I think overall definitely not the nicest move, but allowed by the rules. So yeah, I mean, for Bakker, smart move probably gave her that second place. Let's look at the entire top 10 then. Worst ahead of Bakker and Van Alphen, the riders we just discussed. Then two Belgians, Alicia Frank ahead of Marion Norbert Riberolle from Star Casino. Another Star Casino rider in 6th, Anna Kay ahead of Marie Schreiber. 8th went to Marta Truije ahead of Laura Verdonschot, and 10th place went to Ellen van Looy, the 42-year-old Belgian. So let's talk about a couple of names here, because most names we saw do well yesterday also went well today. Frank and Riberolle, both putting in solid rides today and yesterday. What do you make of their weekend, Issam?
I mean, Frank in Maldegem was not having the best of starts, was quite far behind, and then in the end to pull that result off. Obviously, with the field that was not the field as in Lille, but still a very decent result in a way. And I was more impressed actually with her result today. I think the way she came up, actually able to almost get herself into a top 5, being in the wheel of Bakker and Van Alphen, who also, were riding in Maldegem, so they had the double weekend as well. Maybe not that experienced, but Frank was able in the last lap to get on the wheels of them, but just in the end didn't really have the sprint for it. That was quite strong. And for Riberolle, I think she's ending the season also on I would say not the positives of results, but it's still not bad. And I think for Riberolle, some might have expected a better season. I personally, I wouldn't say it was in line with what I expected, but it wasn't far off. And I think that, this season she should just use it to make sure that next season she can make a step and improve on areas that were not really good. So I think both really didn't have the worst of races this weekend. I think especially Frank was strong in my opinion. I was impressed, and Riberolle was not having a bad weekend as well.
Yeah, I mean, for Riberolle, it's not what we expected from it. I think it was 2 seasons ago when she also became world champion under 23. She was regularly in and around the top 10. Since then, it faded a bit. It's not really what we expected from it, and we expected the step to come. It didn't really come, especially last year was a very tough season for her. So, yeah, I think that still what she puts in terms of results this weekend is definitely good. Form is improving a bit. Results have been improving a bit. I spoke with her as well earlier this season, and she said that she's had a bad summer, has had it very difficult to deal with COVID and finding motivation, but that things are improving and now it's going more her way. Happy that she's become Belgian and that she's moving in the right direction. And I mean, Anna Kay is kind of in the same area, because a couple of seasons ago, I remember in the early phase of the season, she was all of a sudden fighting for podiums, and we're like, whoa, who is this? Anna Kay, exciting young talent. She bunny ups the barriers. She's up here fighting for podia. And then she never really was able to make that step. I think that for this year, she's still very much suffering from that collarbone fracture earlier this year. I think that really ruined her season, because she was out for 6 months in a crucial period of time. We discussed that earlier as well. So I think for Kay and Riberolle, I think next year they will be able to improve a bit, and that we'll see more from them. Someone else who will see more from is Marie Schreiber, the young Luxembourg rider, claiming 2 top 10s, 7th and 9th. 7th in Maldegem and 9th in Lille, that is. Definitely impressive results by this young rider in my opinion. What do you think about her rides?
Always when I see her riding, I I'm not really good with age, but that one she's still 19 only. I mean, she's super young still, and there is so much progression that is still in her, I would say. And yeah, definitely a very good ride, very good weekend for her. But it's all season actually, with some downs as well. But yeah, some good results in between as well. And I think that she's ending the season on a good note. Yeah, and hopefully, that with next season she can improve on several areas, make sure that she gets better and better, and the summer is very important for that. So if she gets through the summer quite good, then I think that she will be able to have more of these kind of results, but then over the whole season in a way.
Yeah, definitely a lot of progression there. I think she is a pure cyclocross rider, and that she has a very good technique combined with a fairly decent power. I think she's one for the climbing courses, so definitely want to keep an eye on out in the future. Another name, probably the last one I would like to discuss, is Rebecca Gariboldi. She hasn't raced a lot in Belgium this year. Earlier this season she raced in Ardooien, Ruddervoorde and Zonhoven, not able to claim a top 10 there. She did end 11th in the World Cup of Valdisol, but there were lots of names missing there. Okay, maybe not the greatest start list this weekend, but yesterday she was fighting for top 10, just missed out, 11th. Today, she does in 10th in a classified cross, by far her best results of her career, so I was quite surprised to see her up there. Do you know anything more about her? Because she hasn't really done a lot of racing in Belgium and therefore in the spotlights, because this is the first time she is in the top 10, and also actually the first time she's been fairly close to the top 10, because in other seasons, as said, the amount of racing in Belgium and the Netherlands was limited, but it was also not that great what she did here. It was always around place 20, 25.
I honestly, not really. The name is... It must be maybe from... I don't know. I have no idea, to be honest. I think that I have heard of it in mountain bike, but I can't really grasp my head around it, why and how. But nevertheless, I mean, it is someone that, in my opinion, came a little bit out of nothing this weekend. Still able to fight for a top 10. I think that is definitely worth mentioning. And, yeah, we have to wait and see if there is more coming out of her. But definitely not a bad result, and also something to mention for sure.
Yeah, well, it's clear who's the surprise of the weekend then. That's Gariboldi, and I mean, I'm quite interested to see what comes from this in the future, and if she maybe will be able to make the step to the fast Valkart team, because she is at the end of the day a fairly decent rider, 4th at the Italian Championships. So could be interesting to see what comes out of that. Maybe a rider who flourishes at a later age, very possible. But these races post-World Championships always provide us with some interesting names in the top 10. Okay, very short then. Let's talk about the men's race in Maldegem. It wasn't the most interesting one. Issam, tell us what happened there.
Yeah, with the field, we miss obviously Pidcock the whole weekend, and the likes of Van der Haar, but especially a very strong Pauw Sousa team were the people to look out to. And at the start, Laurens Zweek having a very good start. We see that more times, but this time it was quite decisive. Vanthourenhout was the only one actually able to bridge the gap to Laurens Zweek, and then we had two of Pauw Sousa in front. However, despite the fact that we had two Pauw Sousa in front, it was actually Toon van de Bos together with Iserbyt that were leading that pursuit behind them. And Zweek halfway through the race was not really happy with that, and also letting Richard Groenendaal, who is one of the coaches of Pauw Sousa, know in a very noticeable manner that he's not happy with the fact what was happening behind him. The pursuit after that was done. They didn't continue that, and with 3 laps to go, actually Vanthourenhout, who was in a good position for second or first place, crashed. And then, he was gone there at the front. Zweek then soloed back to victory. Behind him, we had Iserbyt and Van der Haar were fighting it out. And in the end, Iserbyt was able to get, to get Van der Haar in the sprint, was able to get second place. And Van der Haar was then third.
Zweek simply the best, always strong after the World Championships, claiming 4th victory of the season. You already mentioned he was upset with Pauw Sousa. I mean, if you let that know in such a vocal manner, and then also be still furious about it after and then still being furious about it in the post-race interview when really it isn't needed. I mean, you won, and at the end of the day, everyone rides for his own, kind of in a way. I mean, Maybe not always. Maybe Sveik sees that differently, but at the end of the day, I don't really see why he would be so upset about it. But what do you make of that? How come he was so upset, and why make such a show out of it?
I think just showing that you're not really in your place. I mean, in a way, I can understand this irritation where it comes from, especially if there are two away. And Van der Bos was not riding like, just to control a little bit the pace or something. No, he was kind of going full out. Yeah, I think it's just kind of showing that you're not really in your place. We obviously knew that Sveik is not really happy with where he is right now. We know that probably that transfer is coming. If not in the summer, it will be at the end of this year, where he will then make his transfer to one of the teams. Tormans is one of the guys that has been mentioned quite a lot, but we still don't really have something to pull out from, and we don't really know for sure. The sources say something, but it's not really certain at the moment. But Sveik is not happy with Pauwelshausen. That was quite clear today, and the irritation is there. And you have to question as well. Maybe he thinks that if, for example, Iserbyt and Vanthourenhout were there in front, then he wouldn't have pulled or something. So he maybe felt mistreated in a way, and in the end it didn't really matter for the race, because I think he was strong either way, and in my opinion a deserved victory. And yeah, I think that this is not going to be a long story with Pauwelshausen. There will be a transfer made. If it's not in the summer, it will be at the end of the year.
I mean, as you said, of course, it could be Sveik hinting towards a transfer. Last summer, we already had the saga that Jan Tormans, who is a wealthy entrepreneur in Belgium, wanted Sveik to join his team. And he was trying to force a transfer over the summer while Sveik still had a contract. Sveik now still has a contract which lasts until the 31st of December. So he isn't at the end of contract at the end of the cyclocross season. His contract lasts until the end of December. Of course, Tormans is still interested in Sveik. And as Issam said, sources have said that they could be on his way to Tormans. But now there's news around Tormans, because Jan Tormans, the wealthy entrepreneur, is parting ways with Vanti. He's not been happy with the way he's been treated at Vanti. He got the guarantee, according to himself, that the team would be called the Tormans Cycling Cross Team. That didn't happen, because it's now called the Tormans Circus Cyclocross Team, and that's not the way he wanted it. He said he's also been upset with other things, and that means that he is splitting. But this will probably happen at the end of the year, so starting January 1st, he will found a new team. But this is also something that's unconfirmed. We do not know if it's going to happen at the end of the calendar year or before the new cross season. However, what does seem clear is that he's going to be making a new team with Patrick Lefevre, the owner of Quick²O, or the team manager, I must say, actually. Lefevre is wanting to start his own cross team, also because he's bringing on a new sponsor, Soudal, at the January 1st of 2023, and Soudal is interested in sponsoring in cyclocross. So Tormans and Soudal are going to create a cyclocross team for Quick²O, and that means that if Sveik has a deal with Tormans, it could mean that he's going to become the new main rider of that new cyclocross team. However, this is unconfirmed. It's speculation about Sveik. Jan Tormans, however, did say that it was 100% sure he was going to create a new team and leave with Vanti. This doesn't, however, mean that the riders who are currently riding for the Circus Tormans team, these are Kevin Kuhn, Corné van Kessel, Hermans, but also Bakstedt and Schreiber, is not 100% sure that these riders will leave Vanti, because Vanti says that they will continue with their cyclocross operation, which means we could have 4 major teams in cyclocross next year, or at least 4 major Belgian teams in cyclocross next year, which would be good news. But we'll keep you guys posted over the summer when more comes clear on this, because for now we are just going off reports by Wielerflits, who are usually reliable, but still, it's just wait and see on when and what will happen. Behind Sveik, it was his teammate Iserbyt who ended second ahead of Lars van der Haar. Iserbyt saying it was a mini revenge for being beaten by Van der Haar at the at the World Championships. I think that's a bit weird to say, because a mini revenge by beating Van der Haar, who crashed in the first lap on the barriers due to just being unalert. He just hit the second barrier. He didn't even pull his wheel. I mean, how can you... It's just a bit weird, in my opinion, to talk about revenge, first of all in the park cross of Maldegem, and then second of all after Van der Haar riding a quite impressive comeback.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, yeah, probably the most Iserbyt way of answering that question in a way, but I mean, if you're... I don't think he meant it in that way, but it is definitely not... I would say it's not really a comment that you should be making out about an Ethias Cross in Maldegem. I mean, this is not the most prestigious race anyways. Yeah, I don't know what he was trying to say with that. Obviously, the words, they speak for themselves, but yeah. I mean, if he feels good about himself beating Van der Haar in Maldegem, and that will kind of, make sure that the pain is gone from the worlds, that he's not being able to be second but third. I mean, if that is what makes it for him, then, fair enough, and I wish him all the best, but I don't think, it's just talks, in my opinion, and something that we can expect from someone like Iserbyt. But anyway, I think Van der Haar was having a good race. The barriers were not really his friends, as we have seen a couple of times this season, and yeah, that is just something that it will never go well, in my opinion. Van der Haar and barriers, it's a love-hate relationship in a way, but there is more hate than love in it. So let's hope that it will come well one day, but it appears that in training it goes well, and then in the race it just never really comes out, and mistakes are done made. But yeah, overall I think Van der Haar had a strong race, was just not really able to beat Iserbyt in the sprint, and what Iserbyt makes up of that, that is his choice to do.
Yeah, I think Iserbyt yesterday in Maldegem showed that there is still form in him. I do think that the long season comes to an end for him, and I think he's done more than 34 races. I think he's at something like that, crazy amount. Tiredness starts to kick in. Not a shame. I think everything for him is now on the final race of the Super Prestige in Gavere. He has a good position going into that, but he does need to watch out. Super Prestige is a very close classification. He leads by 4 points, so that means that if he ends in the top 4, he's guaranteed to win. He has a lot of teammates that can help, but if Aerts and Van der Haar are ahead of him, then, I mean, we could have a similar scenario as last year. But we'll speak about that in the preview podcast for next weekend's races. But yeah, overall, I think the form is still there for Iserbyt, and that he is only thinking about one thing: securing the Super Prestige and then taking a much-deserved holiday. Let's look at our entire top 10 then. Zweek ahead of Iserbyt and Van der Haar. 4th place by Niels Von De Putter, who we already discussed in Lille. Strong ride by Toon van der Bos and Felipe Oorts, the numbers 5 and 6 of the race. Then 7th place for Tom Meeuws ahead of Timon Ruwec, Daan Soete and Thibaut Nys. Well, I don't think there's really a lot to say about the riders in the top 10. Most of them were discussed in the Lille part. And I think for the rest, I mean, solid ride by the youngster Thibaut Nys, ending 10th here. Also solid ride by Ruwec, who missed the World Championships due to not being vaccinated. And for the rest, outside of the top 10, Stan Gaudry, surprised to see him end so high, but not really a lot to say. At the end of the day, it's just an Ethias Cross, and season is almost coming to an end, so we'll see a couple of more surprising names in the top 10 in the coming 2 weekends of racing. Issam, thank you for being here today and speaking with me.
Yes, thanks for listening.
As said, we'll be back with a preview podcast for the Super Prestige in Gavere, as that's the final round of the Super Prestige. That podcast will be uploaded on Thursday, and for the rest of the season we'll be making podcasts about the remaining races next weekend, 2 podcasts, and then 1 podcast for the final weekend again. Once again, Issam, thank you for being here. Thanks everyone for listening. Make sure to go to Manscaped and use the code CXSocial22 to get 20% off and free shipping, and we'll be back later. Thanks for listening. Goodbye.